today we're talking about break crops and growing break crops and rotations. And the reason we're doing this work is because we know that farmers haven't really got that many break crop options out there. We have only about 10% of our cropping area in break crops, and because of that farmers are losing out some of the benefits that break crops bring into rotations. Two things we need to look at. There are a couple of misconceptions often that farmers have when they kind of consider and look at break crops. One is that they consider them more variable than cereal crops, and the other is that they consider that they might not be that profitable in rotations. Looking at the variability first, we looked back at 10 or 12 years data, and actually the variability of crops like oilseed rape and beans is very, very similar to cereals. For certain in 2018 beans did suffer a lot, but excluding that, the variability is very, very similar, so they're not more variable than cereals. The second issue is in terms of looking at the crops as individual crops. When you're looking at a break crop, you have to look at the profitability of the rotation. It's pointless to look at the single year. And we have found that when you have typical rotations, including break crops, the profitability of production can be increased by somewhere in the region of 50% compared to growing those crops in monoculture. So that's really the background to our work. The actual program that we're looking at now at the moment is really underpinned by one project, which is OptiBC, which looks at both beans and oilseed rape. And in this program we have a research component which is actually surveying performance of these crops out on farms, where we're monitoring 20 crops per year. That gives us an indication of the variability that's on farms and some of the factors that might impact on them. Further to that, we have a very controlled program in Oak Park. On beans, we're looking particularly at crop establishment systems. So we're looking at maybe strip till systems, comparing them to ploughing and so on. In oilseed rape, we're looking at the level of biomass in the crops after winter. In other words, some growers like to sow early and they produce very big biomass crops. They need a different management than crops which are sown later, which are much smaller in biomass terms. And we're looking at that in much more detail. All of this really work was kind of underpinned by an earlier study which identified beans and oilseed rape as being the most important break crops in Ireland, and that's what really is underpinned this work and why we're doing this work. It is early days, but I think we know that both crops can be profitable, and I think that the management systems that we are developing in this will help refine it and help give farmers confidence in working those systems. If you look, for instance, at the strip till system of establishing beans, farmers and growers are actually using that at the moment, so we're trying to put facts and figures behind that to give them the confidence to go that same way. The same is true of the oilseed rape crops. In terms of the management, again, farmers are modifying their management themselves to take account of how much biomass the crops have post-winter. So we're trying to put facts and figures on that to give them, again, confidence in the systems that they're adopting.